Every now and then I get a little bit lonely and you're never coming round. But you can always see me on the podcast. Well, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I am the Associate Broker Residential Sales Manager at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 283. And God bless Bonnie Tyler, who passed away last night. And, I hate it when I wake up in the morning. First thing I do is I look at my phone and headline, Bonnie, somebody has shuffled off their mortal coil, assumed room temperature, died, escaped this plane of woe, whatever you want to put it. And it's like, damn, because I liked her. I mean, honestly, it's like a lot of pop stars and stuff like that. You don't think about them for the longest time. And there's always in the back of your mind is like, is so-and-so still alive? But then you find out, oh, wow, Mel Brooks' 100th birthday, and he's got another movie coming out. So Spaceballs 2. The Search for More Money, or whatever they're going to call it. So, but, yeah. I think that means that that's the last of the great singers who performed Jim Steinman songs, who, like I've said a million times, is one of the greatest music writers of all time. If you like real over-the-top freaking campy power ballads, which I do, because, hey, over-the-top and campy. So, well, this is episode 283. We have just passed over to July. This is, in fact, July 9th, and all of a sudden I realized... Write down, got to do taxes, because they suck. So I honestly think America would be a better place if everybody had to pay their taxes quarterly. And not just, we're just going to take that out of your check and you're never going to see it. No, write the damn check. Do the numbers, write the check. Do that every freaking 3 months. All right. Get people to start paying attention to things. I think that would be a beautiful thing. And then you might start questioning where your money goes. Just saying. So we're going to have some editorials today, just simply for the reason of that's where the news is at. All right. From the top. All right. I'm just going to get this out of the way because when I start to cook, I'm not going to want to stop. When you get the need upon you, it must be met. All right, so these are the numbers for July 9th, 2026. Actives this week are 24,067, down 129. Our new listings are 1,951, down 317. Our contracts are 1,823, down 485. Closings are at 1,185. Coming soon to an MLS near you is 461 new listings. Our supply has dropped down to 102.7 on the Cromford report numbers. Our demand also dropped a bit to 83.1, leaving us with a comfort report number of 80.9. Easy way to do this as a layman. We have 102 houses for sale where we're supposed to have 100. We have 83 buyers out there where we're supposed to have 100, and we're having 80 transactions, all right, where we should be having 100. Make sense? So, obviously, we need to work on demand. But anyway, same thing when you're working on demand. All sorts of things affect demand. And the way your policies shift depends fully on what side of the aisle are you on. All right. And it makes a lot of sense. People will have different solutions for the same problem. And the people who have different solutions may have thoughts, ideas, understandings that drive their solution to said problems. All right. Your wheat is blighted. All right. One side might sit there saying, we need to come up with that blight. And we notice that once a blight gets into a field, nothing grows there until we burn it all down, let it lie fallow for a year, and then try again the year after. All right. That seems to work. So that might seem like a science-based approach to stuff, right? And people who have a science-based approach to things, or might, tend to have more scientific fixes for problems. And the other side going, nope, it's a witch. So let's go find us a random single woman out there and burn her, and that usually works out. Yeah. So, and hey, wow, accidentally caught the field on fire. So you can't prove it didn't work. So the reason, but it can be anything. It can be as simple as your understanding of economics. All right. Supply side economics is literally says if we raise supply of things, make the supply easier to produce, the prices will come down. All right. Now, strangely enough, in the middle of a primary, because primaries, all your common sense goes right the hell out the window, is actually George Bush Sr., who called that voodoo economics, because he knew that your average voter was an idiot. All right. He knew what supply side economics was, but he also knew that your average knuckle dragger going up to hit the lever, all right, didn't understand that. So, but if you can come up with a really great catchphrase, all right, and throw it in there, people will go with the cheap, easy to understand catchphrases rather than the actual applied, hey, this is going to work. Right? So, I mean, Bob over there, he wants us not to grow food for a year. Meanwhile, Goody Two Shoes over there, she's got that look, all right? And, no more Goody Two Shoes, burner. All right. So, burner, all right, as a campaign slogan sound is a lot easier to remember and put on a sticker you're going to put on the back of your wagon. Of course, they probably didn't have any bumper stickers back then because they didn't have bumpers, so wagon stickers. So you have a wagon sticker, burner. We're the burner campaign. People coming up soon, editorials being written about the burners taking over America. Yeah. Where does this go? So this is the one I've been trying to figure out how the hell I was going to say this week. All right. And everything's pointing to it. All right. This is going to be a long one. I just test drove lining this conversation with Aunt Jessica, and she was only half paying attention to me. Didn't understand it. So let's just assume it's because she wasn't paying attention. So focus. We're paying attention to Ray right now. I only need 5 minutes. All right. Put the phone down. Yeah, that one right there. Unless I'm on the phone. Then you can keep it up, all right? I know some of you guys like to watch me on the big screen, and that's sort of creepifying. Makes me want to use concealers and foundation and worry about my size of my pores. I mean, my pores have to look huge on a 67-inch screen. We're talking like freaking lunar shots from Apollo 11, It almost is pale and pasty. But the Fed, all right? Which, by the way, President can't fire a member of the Fed. All right. The Fed came out with a report earlier this week where they estimated, based on population demand, that in certain localities, price of housing was up 30% over where it should be because of the illegal aliens living in that neighborhood. And rents were up 20% because of the illegal aliens in that neighborhood. Right? That's the Fed. Now, regardless of your policies, all right, or in your beliefs on borders or immigration enforcement, the Fed came out and said, hey, here's a headline. Of course, people who can't read past the headline instantly grab their own opinion, like, Fed's just racist. Or like, oh, it's just damn illegal. It's making my 5-bedroom house more expensive. Well, Bob, if it's just you and that 5-bedroom house, you need to get the hell out. So that's a data point. Okay, they make this declarative statement. Take that statement, put it off on that side of your brain. All right. Next thing that comes down the pike is the numbers that I just read you and the more drawn out numbers. All right. We are doing better activity this year than we have this time last year. And I got those numbers from Cromford. All right. Our year-over-year change, all right, for active listings are actually gone down 4.3%. Our active listings, our pending listings are up 3.3. All right. Listings under contract are up year over year. This time last year in 2025, 0.7, 5.7. Closed listings for this month is up 9%. So we are getting activity going on. Now remember, we have not had appreciation, housing appreciation, right, in the valley for at least the last 2 years, right? 24, 25, 26, going into 26. It looks like we're not we're moving more properties, but the value isn't going up. Okay. And as you can see, looking back on that, our demand is 4/5 of where it should be. So our demand has disappeared suddenly over the last 2 years. All right. Now, inflation had a lot to do with that. Okay. A lot to do with that. Okay. It's harder for people to spend money. They don't have as much money. They're spending other stuff, right? But let's take a step back. Where was the real super run up? We had the initial COVID boom. All right. We all remember that. Yeah. I will never have this channel monetized because I used the real words instead of the fake words. All right. Yeah. 3 things you can't say. 4 things you can't say on YouTube. I'm going to say it right now just to see whether or not this video does not make it past the screeners and I can't post it on Facebook. So here we are on this recording at 11 minutes and 30 seconds. I'm going to say the words murder, rape, suicide, COVID. Okay, so if you're actually watching this thing and the video just suddenly just dropped right there because I said those words, all right, and then he just came back and I was talking again, all right, I tried to upload those words in there and YouTube would not let me report that. Okay, not too sure about COVID. I've already said it once. I've said it before. I've never had him come back and say, oh, don't say COVID. Okay, I do know you can't be monetized if you say COVID. All right, you have to call it the vid, whatever. All right, but we're still working through these things, but I digress, as I usually do. So after that initial boom, especially in rentals went through the roof. All right. That is also the same time the borders we were getting swarmed across. Now that we see the borders are closed, the next article comes in, all right, saying that new apartment builds are slowing. All right. There's too many empty vacant apartments out there. So I look back. When did that start happening? When did the sudden apartment boom disappear? All right. 2 years ago, right around January, all of a sudden, inventory of empty apartment buildings started to go up. So Jess makes a really good valid point. And her statement was, yeah, but you don't rent to anybody unless they have a social security number or an EIN number. And I was like, well, we don't. And big apartment complexes don't. But see, it's a market. All right. And if you are the cheaper alternative, all right, or charging high enough because you can charge high enough because you don't do a background check. So I'm thinking single owner landlords and stuff like that who aren't going through a management company. All right. And you're not doing that kind of background check. You're not checking to see, how many times have you been evicted. All right. We're not checking to see if you're a felon. Although I'm still up in the air on that. I know during the Obama administration, you weren't allowed to ask that question because of disproportionate impact. Okay. And then there was some pushback on that because what are you doing putting a child molester into this, this apartment complex with all these kids? Oh, you can't check about that. Anyway, so, it's still supply. All right. And it's still demand. So if the demand is starting to go away and, they're saying 1 million people have left the U.S. In fact, they're saying that 2026 looks like or was it 2020? I think it's 2025 is the first time American population actually decreased since the founding of this country. And that includes the Spanish flu pandemic, the real pandemic. So are we going to be seeing that across the board, where housing starts getting cheaper because demand is going away because the people who would demand housing have left the country? If we're at 2025 and we actually went down in population, that suggests that, demand for housing should go down, right? Because everybody needs a place to live in. All right. So really, really keep an eye on this space, right? I didn't want to, I wasn't trying to figure out how to talk about this, but I think outside of inflation, outside of what the interest rates are, outside of whether or not we're bombing anybody anytime this second, all right, demand. Okay, we already know we can't work on supply, all right? Every single freaking time they look at what the problem is, all the smart people say it's supply in the areas we don't have supply. And when you look at those areas, it's because the local government, right, is restricting building new houses at an affordable price point for first-time home buyers. All right. So if you are under the age of 40 and you want to own a house sometime in your life, do not care who your president is. Care about who your city council person is. Right? And make them care about your opinion by getting loud and proud and up in their face and occasionally showing up to, city zoning planning meetings. So anyway, the interesting conversations of the day. This is, like I said, everything between the Case-Shiller report that's coming in, which actually pointed as beginning of this year is like, we are like, of the 20 metropolises, we're the only one that's not on a substantial growth. And if you look at that chart, and I really should have printed it up, we were looking at large population centers with a notoriously higher than average illegal alien population. All right, this is just a working theory and stuff like that. And this is what happens to me when I get way too much information in here and it all starts collecting together and the little atoms start creating molecules, and next thing you know, those things are creating amino acids, and then I have random proteins up in my brain, and that's how you get Alzheimer's. So anyways, what else is going on this week? Yeah, it's pretty much the highlights. It's a lot of fun. Real estate. Oh, the most important thing that happened the last 2 weeks, besides the window, is I was viciously assaulted at one of my listings, doing a walkthrough with some buyers, where a small kitten who was yelling and screaming and crying on the parking lot next door on the other side of the chain link fence suddenly decided she needed to come over, all right, and say hi, and the buyer's kids sort of chased her off. And then she came back, when I was talking to the buyers, and the kids were off kicking a soccer ball or something like that. And I reached down and, I'm the cat whisperer, and did this little, let her sniff, give her a little scratch. And next thing you know, she's like climbing my leg up into my so I'm walking around showing the house with the cat, and she's just purring up a storm. And so as we were done, I locked the house up and I put the cat down, pat her on the head so you could go home. And I start walking back out to my car, and it's a big lot, right? It's a desert landscaping big lot. So we get all the way out to the front, and she's still there. I close the gate. I close her on the inside. She wiggles underneath the fence, and she's like, meow, meow, And I was like, oh crap. So I took a picture, sent it to the wife, and said, hey, FYI, get the office ready. This one's followed me. I'm bringing her home. I can move her. Don't worry. I can get rid of this cat. And then I drive home with this cat in my lap. I mean, she's just sitting there, just purring up a storm. Karen's there. I walk in. There's a cat. She takes it, goes into my office. I get everything set up and stuff. Go in there. And we're discussing what we're going to do with said feline, and, we'll find a shelter or something or this and that. And about 5 minutes later, she goes, fuck. I was like, what? She goes, we got a kitten. And I'm like, yeah, we do. I knew that from the get. I knew I was chosen. I knew that was my cat from the second her little tiny sharp needle-like claws rend my flesh. And as soon as she got that DNA sample from my blood, I'm her bitch. All right. At least for now. Right now, I'm teaching her not to walk on keyboards and stuff like that. That training is going really rough. So, anyways, her name is now Aowen. Okay, which is really cool because if I say Aowen, a certain percentage of the population instantly knows what I'm talking about, and the other percentage goes, huh? So another way I can know my tribe. All right, so if you're sitting there trying to figure out, huh? All right, go watch a movie. Go watch the 3 best movies that have come out in the last 25 years. All right, and no, it's not a Star Wars movie. Burn in hell for even thinking about that. Go watch those movies and come back and go, oh, yeah, that character. All right, because she is indeed a fighter. All right, let me tell you what. She is a shield maiden of the first. She will not be left at home with the elderly. All right, she wants to be riding into battle, and God damn it, Gondor calls, and Rohan will answer. So, last thing I just want to point out: people are not watching their children and pets around water, but congratulations, God gave you all a do-over. Here in Phoenix, Arizona, they fished a kid out of a swimming pool. They pronounced the kid dead. They shipped the kid down to the morgue, and the kid started moving in the morgue. Okay, so what does this tell you? 2 things. Watch your freaking children and pets around water. Okay? And just because they've quit moving and quit breathing, don't necessarily trust that intern who's been up for 24 hours. All right? But still, you should. Okay? But hey, think of it this way. God just gave us a second chance to watch children and pets around water, right? We don't have to worry about driving anything flooded because, hey, we don't know where the hell the monsoons are. So work your circles every day. You guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you all later.